How did you get involved with Operation Babylift?
I got involved with it because I was a flight nurse, and I was stationed at Travis, and we were in the process. The Air Force was combining the East Coast and West Coast air evac units with their Pacific or Atlantic counterparts. So McGuire was going to be combined with Rhine-Main at Frankfurt, Germany, and the Travis group was going to be combined with the 9th group at Clark Air Base in the Philippines. And so I happened to be the alert nurse that day. We pulled alert from 8 o'clock in the morning one day till 8 o'clock the next day. Well, the alert mission came at 6 a.m. We didn't know what the mission was, which is not unusual in air evac on urgent missions. You just get told you're doing a mission. Normally, the medical crew director gives a briefing to the aircraft commander, and the aircraft commander gives a briefing to the medical crew director. Now, on an air evac mission, there are really 2 people in charge, depending on what the nature of them is going on. The aircraft commander is in charge of all flight safety. So if there's something with the plane, he has the last word. The medical crew director is in charge of all patient and passengers. He or she has total responsibility, to the point that if the medical crew director believes the plane needs to land and they need to get on ground support, he or she has the ability to say to the aircraft commander, you need to land this plane now. And he or she can't question it. It's like they're in charge. So it's a shared responsibility. So when I walked up to Bud and I said, okay, Captain Trainer. He was a captain, I was a lieutenant. So I walked up to him and I said, well, hi, I'm Lieutenant Aune, and I'm the medical crew director on this mission. And I introduced the crew and I said, I can't tell you anything about the mission because we don't know what it is, because we didn't know what the mission was. And he looks at me and he said, well, hi, I'm Bud Trainer. I'm the aircraft commander, and I've never flown an air evac mission in my life, so you have to tell me how air evac missions go. And if you've never been to Vietnam in April, you have no idea how hot and humid it is. Like 95 degrees temperature and 95% humidity. I mean, it's just like you're dripping wet as soon as you land. And so he said, I'm going to close up all the doors, so come up to the flight deck. So he had the entire crew come up to the flight deck. And he and the co-pilot went in to find out what the mission was. So he comes back with this Air Force colonel from the Consonant Command Post. And they climb up to the flight deck where the rest of us were. And he said, who's the medical crew director on this mission? And I said, I am, sir. And he said, oh, well, you're going to take about 300 people out of here today, and most of them are babies under the age of 2. That was when we found out what our mission was. That's exactly how we found out what our mission was. The Vietnam War was over in 1973. The POWs came home. In fact, I flew with some of the nurses after the fact, because I wasn't flying at the time they brought the POWs home. I was stationed at Andrews, but they brought the POWs home on air evac flights in '73, in February of '73, and the U.S. government left a small contingent of troops in South Vietnam because they were trying to work with the South Vietnamese government to shore it up, to let it, to enable it to be strong, which didn't happen. And by the end of 74, early 75, it became pretty apparent, I think, that South Vietnam was going to collapse. And that was when President Ford decided that we needed to get the Vietnamese orphans out of the country. The North Vietnamese were already in Saigon, because when we went in, we could see all the ground fire, and they knew the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese were already in Saigon, and people were trying to get out of the city. I mean, it was just total chaos everywhere, and it was no different at the airport.
So why'd the plane crash?
You feel like talking about it?
Well, we had this discussion the other night.
Yeah.
Some of this has got to be off the record, and I know that's not what you're supposed to say, but the official version is that the failed on the and when it did, because the on a C5 is like a zipper, and so if you partially unzip, the whole thing unzips. The real fact of the matter is that they never really recovered enough to definitively say this is exactly what happened. They never could recover enough of the aircraft. And you have to know the flight in total was 20 minutes from the time we took off till we crash landed. It was only 20 minutes. Only 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Because we were at 23,000 feet climbing up when the doors failed. Oh, the book is really about one day in Vietnam, because it's about the day of the plane crash. And the book, it's written by Aaron, too, who was one of the babies on the plane. We wrote the book together, so we both tell our stories, and then we show how they're connected. The people in the orphanages said often was that they didn't have names for these babies because sometimes they were left in the doorsteps at night and they were just dropped off at the orphanages. For them to leave the country at the time that they petitioned to have the babies leave the country, the Vietnamese government required that they have birth certificates. Well, a lot of the babies didn't have birth certificates, and they had to have Vietnamese names. I think she was a wealthy Vietnamese lady, got blank birth certificates from the government, and they sat there at night writing out, making up names and birthdays based on how old they thought the baby was, and then they gave them a Vietnamese name. So those even aren't their real names. When I taught at flight school, the students would say to me, do you ever try to find them? And I said, there's no way. I said, because of their names, you would never be able to figure out how to find them. But she found me. That's how we got in touch, because there was no way I could have found any one of them. You know, and then at the reunions, I met more of them. So I've met at least 6 or 7 that were on that plane that survived.